Hi everyone, what can I say? Finally, we have OKINOS case on the channel, and I'm really excited. I do have to admit that because I was looking at their cases for far too long, and finally we have one. This is OKINOS Air Cross, which comes with a specific design, and the front panel is something completely different in terms of you have the option for the mesh part to be pushed, and then it just pops out. You get the access to two 140mm fans. But those fans aren't just the only fans that you get inside this case. You get 5 fans pre-installed, or actually 4 fans pre-installed. The one at the rear needs to be installed after the 360 radiator is placed on the top. And that's not all, because they actually have a sticker at the back of the hard drive cage that actually says, place your 360 AIO at the top prior to placing the 140. And you can see from close-up that this and this part, the front and the back, are quite close. So just simply do that. I mean, they were clever in terms of that because they placed the 140 inside the specific box on the accessory box. So it's not like already obstructing and you don't have to tie it up. But okay. The front panel, apart from the mesh part, you have the, let's say, quite interesting power button. It's quite huge and goldish. And you have a real wood walnut here with OKINOS logo engraved or burnt in or whatever it is, but it's a quite nice touch for this chassis. Now, apart from those fans, we have two here that are lower down, and to access those, well, basically just for the sake of the airflow, you remove this. You have two thumb screws here on the side. You remove the side panel, and it's perforated steel, the same thing as on the other side. The fans are placed below the motherboard. So you might already notice the pattern here and the visual aspect of some other case that this is quite familiar design. But what I can say is it's not a problem if it's a familiar design, because this case also performs really good. And not only that, the price is outstanding. So for the current promotion, this case will be $79.99 in the US. After that, after the promotion ends, it's going back to $89.99. Well, it's not going back, it's the original price, but regardless of that, that's a killer price for case that has 5 fans, 2 reversed, and 3 140 regular. The only thing that it's missing, even though you do get a splitter inside the accessory box, is basically a hub, but honestly, this type of case doesn't need RGB. And I don't know why I placed this AIO at the top, but it does give a nice shine for the inner part. Now, let's close this and continue for this inner part. As you can see, it's quite easy to place it back. Nothing too complicated, I would say. You use those 2 thumb screws, tie everything up, and that's it. So the resemblance to, I do have to mention that Lankel 207 is quite visible. The only difference that I noticed, not the only difference in terms of front panel and everything altogether, but the only thing that I would actually do is having a hole here in front of the fans, so you would have a waterfall effect for the cable running straight beneath the fans. It's not going to obstruct anything because everything is clear here beneath the fans, so basically just the cable, one cable running through that won't obstruct the airflow through the GPU. The interesting thing is, and I do have to mention that as well, the backside locking mechanism for the expansion slots. I'm really digging this one because you have a thumb screw, you open it, and you get the access for the screws. Now, those covers for the expansion slots that slide are really a nightmare. So, talking nonsense, and let's go with some other details. There's also quite interesting thing. What we have here is, I saw in the accessory box dual anti-sag GPU bracket, because you have the same ones in the accessory box, and I don't know what was the need for 2, maybe one underneath and one upwards, but regardless of that, you have 2 lanes on the side where there's a possibility to use the thumb screw and adjust the anti-sag bracket. Now that's not all, because the anti-sag bracket has some sort of an elbow. So if you're having a too short GPU, you're going to go with the first lane. You're going to basically bend that elbow to help you hold the GPU, like in my scenario, what I did. But it's a cool thing because you can adjust the height, and that's outstanding. Now we're having dual airflow system for quite solid cooling, I do have to admit. Now, the bottom part has magnetic dust filter. The top part doesn't have a magnetic dust filter, but it's perforated steel, the same thing as on front and on the both sides. So that's the only thing that you need to know. Regarding the space and the optimization for the intake, what you get is distance from the GPU fan to the graphic card is 69 to 102 millimeters, and distance from the fan to the bottom is 38 millimeters. That's more than enough to create an insane airflow intake. And PCI slots, when we're talking about that, we have 7 of those at the back, so that's kind of regular. I don't have to even go too much with that. Now for the fans, we have one H14. On the front, we have two H14C, and at the power supply shroud, we have two H12CR, which are basically PWM reverse fans. All fans are PWM, so you don't have to worry about that. For mounting storage, what you can do is, and what I already gave you an idea, because when placing this fan on the rear, you have on the cage that sticker, which means that it can support one 3.5-inch hard drive, which was replaced for the power supply, to have it placed here at the back, which is great because rarely you can place a hard drive cage at the back, but since this motherboard also supports back connect, it's a really cool thing to be able to place a hard drive at the back. And on the far right side, you have possibility to place two 2.5-inch SSDs. Now, for the space, for the cable management, on the right side, and I'm talking here when you're looking at the back side of the PC, you're having 33 millimeters of clearance for cable management, including when you're using the back connect motherboard, so ATX and micro ATX. And on the far right side, you have 37 millimeters where the SSDs are. The back side for the back connect is very well designed, because in terms of rearranging the cables, and if you're going with the back connect motherboard, you have I think three or four Velcro ties, which is outstanding, and you have a couple of those extrusions where you can use zip ties and tie up the cables quite nicely, which will just give you a nice and outstanding cable management at the back. Now, speaking about cable management, I use a regular ATX power supply, which gives me a possibility to run two EPS cables, because it's fairly long, to the top, at the back, top side, and then just connect it. So basically, all the back side is completely clear. All the cables are placed on the far right side, and you can nicely organize literally everything. Going with the I/O ports, at the top we have, apart from the front having the power button, the top is one reset button. We have two USB 3.0 Type A, one USB Type C 3.2 Generation 2 10 gigabits per second, and we have 4-pole 3.5mm headphone and microphone combo jack. Unless the thumb screws are tightened really hard in terms of using thumb screw when they were going out of the factory, basically this case is toolless, because on the front you can remove the whole front panel just by pushing it, pulling it from the front bottom part. The top front part is on some pegs, so you just push the top part and it pops out. The top side is also on pegs, same thing on the side, and the tempered glass. The only two thumb screws what you have are here on the side, which when I took it out of the box, they weren't tied too much, so you don't need a screwdriver apart from mounting all other components inside. Now, there's also something that might interest you, and that's the thickness of the radiator. So if you go with the rear 140mm fan, the maximum thickness of the radiator plus the fans is 55mm. But if you go with 120 fan at the rear, you can go with 55 to 70mm of thickness, which is really good because you get an option to move the fans up and down. The 120, of course, the 140 is fixed. This is the lowest point, so you can't move it anywhere else. The GPU compatibility is 400mm. Talking about configurations, fan support 2 140 or 3 120 at the top, 120 or 140 at the rear, 2 140 at the front. This is fixed. You can't place any additional brackets to go with 120 or anything similar to that, and 2 120 on the power supply shroud. When we're talking about radiator support, at the rear you could go with 120, and at the top you could go with 120, 140, 240, 280, 360, which has the length maximum up to 402 millimeters. CPU cooler height maximum is 180 millimeters, and for the power supply 170 millimeters. So basically now you have literally all the necessary information about this case. You can think about it whatever you want. Of course, I'm not going to go and delve into that. It does resemble with some, this part basically in the lower motherboard tray, it really does resemble to the Lancel 207, and I do have to state that once again. But regarding the front design and everything altogether, it's a bit different, let's put it this way. I don't mind if the price is right. It will be really strange to have some sort of similarities and then just spike up the price, because they won't fly. This will definitely fly because, well, honestly, this case, first and foremost, looks outstanding. Has brilliant airflow. Two dedicated, let's say, compartments in those terms, because these two fans have an intake from the bottom directly to the GPU. This bottom fan also kind of goes directly to the GPU, but the top one has the intake for the AIO, or depending if you're going with an air cooler up to 180 as I stated, it can give you quite nice airflow through that. Talking about that, we're going to go with benchmarks, and this is going to be quite interesting for you guys because I'm running the same configuration that I did a couple of days back. We're having 7900 X3D, we're having RTX 4080 Gaming X Slim, and this is Pure Loop 3 LX360 cooling down that CPU. So when we go with AIDA 64 Extreme Edition, the CPU went up to 83 degrees. So that's 3 degrees higher than in that Pure Loop video. Clock speed is 4775. Back then it was 4850. The GPU, I had a different GPU in that case, but as I recall correctly, in that case, this GPU was running at 6869. Guess what? In this case, it's running 66 degrees. And you remember in all other videos where I use this card, this GPU tends to go from 66, I rarely saw 65, goes from 66 to 73. And 66 is definitely one of the lowest points, because 65 I barely get. So let's move forward. Cinebench R23, the average out of 10 runs is 78.3 degrees, which is brilliant. Outstanding airflow going from the front and from the bottom, giving, well, basically giving nice intake, and then exhausting everything through other fans. Then we have the clock speed, average of 10 runs, 5005 megahertz clock speed, and the Cinebench score is 26,817. Now, what can I say? This case, of course, apart from the AIO and everything altogether, but if I placed some other AIO that creates a worse Cinebench score, it's also down to the case, because you do need to have a case that does have a proper airflow. And I could place this AIO in a worse closed case, and of course we will see the difference. So it does matter which AIO placed, or cooler, or in general anything, but also the big impact is the case. So this is a well-ventilated case, it's a well-designed case, the manufacturing process, design, or final finish, or whatever you want to call it, it's just brilliant. Quite nice quality in material in general. Loving the button. There is no problems with the button pressing it. It's really straightforward, and loving that design on front. I do have to admit, it's really cool. The whole front panel is brilliant, and just ease of access towards everything is also outstanding. So I'm just gonna say it, PC Crazy approved badge, even though it does resemble to that other case that I mentioned prior to everything. But yeah, it's just a great design on front. They could have placed bigger fans maybe on front, not quite sure. No, they can't, because on the side there is some sort of not a blockage, but just not enough space to place 16, 17, 18 centimeters fans. But in general, case is nice. The price is really good. I mean, $79.99 with this type of design, small footprint, smaller footprint than the standard MIDI tower case, and 5 pre-installed fans. I think that's a good deal while the promotion lasts. So, speaking about that, I'll place the link in the description for the OKINOS AIR CROSS, so you can check out literally everything that you need to know about it, and of course the price, even though I stated it. And finally, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell. I'll see you quite shortly in a new one. Thanks, bye bye.